Welcome to Reddit Recap. Don't forget to subscribe. Reddit asks, what's a real life glitch you've experienced that you still can't explain? My brother got shot in the stomach and the bullet bounced off and fell on the ground. Apparently it had traveled a long distance and lost a lot of velocity. It left a welt. But that was it. Well, I've posted this before but I'll post it again. Basically, it felt like I stepped back in time. I was walking on the sidewalk along a busy road when suddenly with a step, the whole damn world changed around me. It was a crazy hot day but suddenly it was cool and cloudy. There were only a few cars on the road and lots of people riding bicycles. I remember seeing a girl in a blue dress out of the corner of my eye. It was so surreal. But with the next step I was back in the usual reality and to this day I have no idea what happened. Dreamt I was on a train which crashed. The guy in front of me was decapitated. The train car caught on fire before plunging off a bridge into water. I drowned. Woke up in a panic. Realized I wasn't dead and fell back asleep. Had the exact same dream. And again. And again. Next day. Dragging my tired butt into work wondering why my mind decided to play a dream like a bad VCR. I passed the volunteer desk at work with its daily pile of newspapers. The evening before a train had crashed before plunging off a bridge into a river. Later it came out the crash produced some horrific injuries including decapitation. Edit to add. I was a very broke young adult and did not own a TV until a few years after this dream. When I was about 6 or 7, my cat died. It was the first time I experienced death and it really shook me up. Then, about a month later, I saw my cat walk into my room clear as day. I wasn't freaked out and I didn't question it. I reached down to pet him and suddenly he was gone. This happened a few more times until we got 2 new cats. Each time it happened, the fact he was dead never crossed my mind. As a kid, shot a rubber band off my fingers at a soccer goal. Rubber band, unbroken, was looped around one of the strings of the soccer goal. Absolutely no clue how that happened. Girlfriend and I were talking on her front lawn. Mid-sentence, I felt something evil to my left. I stopped talking and turned. She did too. Saw some sort of shadowy humanoid around 30 feet away. Light was enough that it was obviously not a person. She asked, "Do you see that?" She didn't know why I stopped talking. I nodded. Without another word we both ran inside. No idea what it was. I would call it a trick of the light. But it was out of my vision when I originally got that feeling. In high school I did archery. And one day at shooting practice one of the new kids shot a bullseye exactly. Dead center. This isn't that remarkable. You fire enough arrows. Sooner or later one of them will be a bullseye. But everyone was being nice and congratulating him. Suddenly, a voice in my head, which sounded like me, but didn't feel like me, said, "Yeah, but Lynn's about to do the same thing." And I could see in my mind's eye, Lynn firing an arrow. It flying through the air and hitting a dead center bullseye. Then, maybe 3 or 4 seconds later, I watch as Lynn fires an arrow and it flies in exactly the trajectory I had seen in my head. And lands with a thwack. Bullseye. Everyone is over congratulating Lynn now. She was new too. And I'm standing off to the side wondering what the fuck just happened. It happened one more time a month or 2 later too. I saw something happen in my head exactly as it did a few seconds later. I've forgotten the details of the second time though. And it's never happened since. When I was about 13-14, I went on a trip to another state with my church youth group. We drove through the country for hours in a region I had never been to before. Eventually we ended up in a small town. I was looking out the window and realized I knew this town as if I had lived there before. Like, I knew the post office would be a few blocks ahead on the right. And then, sure enough, there it was. Weirder. I knew what the buildings would look like. I predicted the location of all the landmarks in the town before we were close enough to see them. And all of the predictions were correct. It was very spooky and got the other kids on the bus a little riled up. I had left my cell phone. This was 2006 so it was an LG flip phone. on the charger when I went to work. After an 8-hour shift I got home and grabbed it. There was a voicemail from an unknown number. I listened to it and it was a man saying he had just received a call from my number and wanted to make sure it wasn't someone he knew that needed something. I checked the call log and sure enough at 2 p.m. about 3 hours before I was home, my phone called a number. I called him back and asked if someone said anything. At this point I was convinced someone broke in. He said he could hear someone talking in the background but it wasn't something he could understand. That's why he called back. I never figured out if it was a polite intruder using my phone without stealing anything or something more spiritual. I'm not a believer in ghosts but quite a few unexplainable things happened in that house. It was unexplained for a little bit, but it was freaky and as far as I know, an actual glitch. I was driving home from, I think, the bookstore and suddenly realized the street signs were missing letters. Like a stop sign would read STP. Then other things I saw began missing parts, but without any space for the missing stuff to be in. Like if reality was a piece of paper that was being folded to hide things. I managed to drive home like this, barely keeping myself from freaking out. Got home and things got back to normal. Then the worst headache of my entire life hit me. Yep. My first migraine ever, of luckily only 2 so far. With years apart. I'd heard people talk about migraine symptoms, like colors and blinking lights and smudges that impair your vision a little. Stuff like that. Nobody had ever mentioned a symptom could be reality fucking warping around you. Years ago I was driving home late from work and as I was waiting at an intersection my whole car jerked violently to the right. It actually lifted off the ground and sent my drink flying. I looked up and saw the light was green so I restarted the car, manual transmission. It stalled and started to go through and pull over to check for damage. At that moment a drunk woman in an SUV ran the red light and smashed into a power transformer. If whatever happened to me hadn't I would have been T-boned on my driver door. I called 911 and stayed to give my statement. But I think the woman died as the ambulance did not have sirens on when it left. Once when running a rude neighborhood I'd run 100 times I went across a street and suddenly lost all sense of direction. I slowly stopped and tried to orient myself with street signs and landmarks. But nothing made sense. I know, it sounds like dementia. But I was only in my 30s and had never experienced it before or since. It was as if the Matrix reloaded and I was pointed in a different direction than before the reload. But my body still remembered the direction I was going. So a long time ago I was fed up with life and stepped off a curb in front of a dump truck. Turned, looked at the grill of the truck, closed my eyes, opened them to the truck passing me by and me back up on the curb. Still don't understand it and I don't know if I want to. One time during a run I had an out-of-body experience. I was just running along. And then I blinked and I was seeing everything as if I was standing over my own shoulder. I could see the back of my head and all around me but my head wasn't moving. It was just super weird. It seems like soon after I learn a new word or idea, it pops up somewhere in everyday life. But I don't remember ever noticing it before. My friend and I were once outside when he was changing his girlfriend's car battery. It was at night and there was a lot of fog out. Suddenly, there was a flash of white lights in his neighborhood for like half a second. It couldn't have come from a porch light or something. Everything was engulfed by the light. We looked around and didn't see anything that could have caused it. There were no cars. None of his neighbors had turned on any lights. Nothing. To this day, we still believe a Terminator was sent back in time to his neighborhood. I put my untangled earphones in my pocket and when I took them out again, they were untangled. This happened to me about a month ago. For those who don't want to read the full story, basically, my co-worker and I, on separate occasions found notes that had been written then erased on our desks. That had phrases that we had previously texted. Neither of us wrote the notes. We have no explanation. Back when I was sharing a shitty flat with my best mate we scraped together enough poo change for a 6-pack. In the morning I came out and there were 6 empties on the coffee table and 1 mystery beer still in the fridge. It was our magic beer. But one day I forgot it was magic and drank it. The end. I swear I've witnessed framerit lag. Edit. I was completely sober. Woke up one day and started randomly having panic attacks after 30 plus years of healthy, normal living. I once bought 3 rotisserie chickens on clearance. $2 each. I picked at one of them on the drive home. Get home. Lock my car. For once, I rarely lock it. I have 2 chickens with me. And a pizza. And I was too lazy to grab the 3rd chicken. It was like 10 degrees outside. I wasn't worried about spoilage. Figured I'd grab it in the morning. I know for sure I left that chicken on the floor of my car in front of the passenger seat, yet the next morning, it was gone. Vanished. No sign of it anywhere. Where did my chicken go? A classic summer thunderstorm was fast approaching. It was super windy out but not yet raining. I've always been fascinated by weather. So I went outside and sat in a lawn chair. I was sitting in the middle of my yard. A good 10 feet from anything when I was pelted in the face with a crouton. It was gusty. But not at the moment I was struck. I took it inside to show my family and no one cared. I never came up with a reasonable explanation. I traveled back to my hometown to visit relatives. On second day back, I went to bed, blinked, and suddenly it was daylight. Apparently I had slept an entire 36 hours. But my relatives remembered me doing various activities, washing dishes, eating dinner, shopping, etc. Though nobody actually saw me around. My mom told me this. In my parents' bedroom was this really large master closet. It was technically just one closet, but it had 2 doors going into it. Between the 2 doors was a high shelf and a hanging rod for clothes. So it functioned like 2 separate walk-in closets, but you could walk from one to the other by ducking under any clothes hung in the middle. One night she was in her side of the closet and she saw through the gap between the shelf and the clothes rod my dad walk into his side of the closet. She heard the metal coat hangers sliding as he looked for something to wear and saw the clothes in the middle sway as they were brushed from the other side. From her side of the closet she started talking to him about something random. Then she heard the bathroom door open. She poked her head out of the closet to see my dad clearly just emerging from the shower. Walked to look into his side of the closet and nothing. And up until the moment she poked her head out to look at the bathroom door, she will swear to you she could still see my dad in that closet. One morning I woke up, rolled out of bed, brushed, had breakfast as usual, and then went about my day off. I lounged around the house a little bit, played my DS for a bit, clinked away on my guitar. A lazy morning. Suddenly I'm driving in my car a couple towns over on my way to the B&N. I pulled over and tried to collect my thoughts. I remembered waking up and getting ready, watering plants, cleaning my stuff up in the living room, then hopping in my car. But I also remember doing all of the stuff from that other version of that morning. So I had 2 separate days that suddenly merged into one and kept both memories. I was meeting someone at the train station from Craigslist to buy my old phone for $200. He let me know when he was going to arrive and what he would be wearing. I got there, saw a guy that matched the description and showed him the phone. He took a look, gave me $200 and went on his way. As I started walking back home, I got a phone call from the original buyer telling me he just got to the train station and was looking for me. I had no idea what to say. Who the fuck did I sell my phone to? I bit a banana once and the apple biting sound file played instead. This is a repost, then again. It fits. I'm not the kind of person to have a great many friends, but those friends I do keep are sacred to me. So one evening I was getting out of a Rotterdam subway, to go to my apartment near there, when I see an old friend. One I haven't seen in the flesh in a few years heading into the subway. I call out his name. He turns, waves and makes this call me gesture, then the doors close and the subway rides off. 30 seconds later, my phone rings. It was my friend, who told me he'd just seen me get in the normal train he'd used to get home from the bar, apparently. I had grinned, waved, gestured call me, The door shut and the train drove off. I lived in Rotterdam. He lived in Enschede. That's just over 200 kilometers apart. Or about 125 miles. Our mattress did not have those little rope handles on. It absolutely did not. As of last week. While I was stripping the sheets and putting on fresh ones. It does. I'm too afraid to check again. That's all for this video. You made it to the end. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing so you know when the next videos are released. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.